Hey Eurovision fam, it's Alicia Michelle, and today I'm not alone, which is really exciting for me because in times like these, we definitely need community, and I'm joined by some of my favorite people in the Eurovision world in our community. So I'm gonna without further ado, y'all can introduce yourselves, and I'm gonna kick it off to who's next to me right now, and that is Mihal. So kick it off.
Hey everyone, as Alicia said, it's Mihal here, founder of Eurovision Hub. You can follow everything at the handle at Eurovision Hub, or if you want to follow me, it's at Mihal Okin. And next to me is Matt, so take it away.
All right, so my name is Matt, and I'm the founder and editor-in-chief of ESCUnited. You can find us on YouTube, ESCUnited, on Twitter, or any social media, ESCUnited. And of course, we have our forum at ESCUnited/forum. You can join there as well. That's who we are, and I'm heading it over to Ewan.
Oh, right. We have a different line then. Hello, I'm Ewan Spence. You might recognize my voice from such podcasts as ESCInsights, and now you'll realize why I do podcasting, not video. I'll pass over to the person who does video really well for Insight, Ellie.
Hello, I'm Ellie Chalkley from ESCInsight, Eurovision Again, and inexplicably popular tea towels.
Hi everyone, it's Tim here. I'm an editor for ESCXtra. You can follow us at Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok at ESCXtra, or if you want to follow me, it's just Eurovision TJ.
So I'm so happy to assemble this group of Eurovision superstars in my book. And okay, like Eurovision 2021 season, it's happening. Like it truly is upon us. And we've got 3 songs. Does anyone have any favorites yet? Songs that you know you'll be jamming? So we've got currently Israel, Set Me Free. France is sending Voila. And then Albania. Okay, yeah.
Come on, vocals. Yes,
Don't make me do this.
Better sing.
Yeah, does anyone have any favorites so far? What do you think? Any entries that felt shocking? Let's kick off. Yeah, is anyone loving Albania right now? Is Albania at the top of anyone's list as of now?
I always say at the end of January, it is too early to tell with Albania. There's a long way to go.
I definitely agree. Yes, there is going to be a revamp, but I think that Albania has some nice bones to work with personally. I really do. And I mean, they already had sort of staging that they were giving us. So I do think that we're going to have a full package from Albania this year. I don't think she'll just be standing in the middle of the stage, singing a song. Okay, but we're not getting a ton of love or a ton of excitement for Albania. So I'm going to move on. Israel, which was, I guess, kind of a controversial national selection. There was a whole bunch of back and forth. What are our thoughts on Israel? Set Me Free.
Set Me Free is my favorite so far of the 3. I really like it. It caught my attention when we first heard, was it a list of 10 or 12 songs? And I was like, am I the only one that likes this? Because it wasn't getting a lot of love. Then the revamp came and it excelled for me. I just love the attention, the detail in the production. I'm such a geek for stuff like that. It's got that nod to the 70s retro vibe, but it's still mixing pop, their ethnic elements together. So I'm here for it.
For me, I actually agree with Miho. I'm a sucker for Set Me Free. When I saw it, I was like, why is this not much getting any love? And personally, for me, it's the one out of the 3 that shows her off as an artist. It's kind of like the other 2, one extreme or the other, but Set Me Free has got that right balance. And as Eddie said, January, it's still January when we're talking right now. So there's still the potential to change it up. So come on, Israel, improve it and hopefully can get you to the final.
Eden's song is the first one this year, which it's going to be so hard to do with so many returning artists, where I wish I could separate in my head all of the stuff from last year and all of the stuff from this year, because I'm sure I would be much more attached to this year's songs if I hadn't heard the ones that she had to pick from last year, which were all fab.
Yes, and that's exactly how I feel. I sometimes wish I could erase 2020 from my memory because it never happened, yet you still compare the last year's effort to this year's, and you try not to. You're trying to be fair and objective, but it's hard. You think of Fikali for and you just remember what could have been, and that's probably why I personally felt kind of let down by Set Me Free, because I wanted to get something a little bit more Eden. Where she could shine more, I guess, and I didn't get that. So I'm a little bit more on the side of things.
And before we move on, we got our keychains, our first one of the year. So I'm happy. Hey. It might not be necessary. I know we don't always need one, but I don't know, times like this, why not throw it in, cheer everybody up? So
yeah, I have to say, I feel a little bit like I just wish that, and it almost, I think, begs the question, what if Israel hadn't, given us all those songs last year? What if they maybe just whittled it down to 3? Then maybe we could have seen like Roots this year. It could have had the opportunity, maybe to represent. And I think my fear for Israel is, I love Eden. I think that she's a great performer. No matter what she's going to do on stage, it's going to sound good. It's going to look good. But the song for me is just so middle of the road. Ultimately, I feel that it's just a little bit middle of the road. But I remember when I first was reacting to the songs, Set Me Free was the song that I was like, oh, this has potential. Like, there are things that we could do to kind of bring it out. And I think a lot of it is just creative production. And so I think they still have an opportunity to kind of give us a little bit more of like that Ethiopian vibe and sound. And I would appreciate that being injected to the song a little bit more. And honestly, I cannot stand the hollow, it just sounds like, oh, to me.
Yeah, I feel you on that one. I can just echo what you are saying. The middle of the road thing. It's not even a song that I dislike or any shape, because there's nothing dislikable about it. It's just so middle of the road for me, and that is always, to me, the most dangerous place to be at Eurovision, because you'd rather want to have a polarizing end that's lots of love and lots of hate, rather than the one, yeah, it's fine kind of thing. But it just kind of disappears, and that's my biggest worry about this song. So I'm just indifferent about it.
Yeah, I think it is safe. I think that's the thing. And it's so early, it's hard to see, like, because ultimately when we get all of our songs, we could be like, oh, okay, this actually ends up kind of shining and standing out. But my fear is that because it feels a little bit safe to me right now, who knows where we'll be, in March.
Yes.
Yeah. I didn't know how to feel, because the final 3 songs ultimately I felt could be quite safe, and sending a safe song, as Matt and you said, it's risky because they'll appeal to a wider audience, but the wider audience might think that the others will be voting for it, and therefore it kind of tanks. So hopefully staging, and Eden herself is going to perform the hell out of it. So let's see what happens. But there's a lot of potential there. I'm excited.
Ewan, do you have thoughts on Set Me Free?
The problem, again, just like Matt said, is it is a safe song. And as we've seen in the last couple of years at Eurovision, the songs that get announced closer to the end find it far easier to pick up the momentum that drives them forward to the contest. I think we can all remember just how much of an impact Duncan Lawrence's release had when it was like 4 or 5 days before the heads of delegation meeting. I don't think it would have been as strong as if they had revealed that in January. And you would then be all the other national finals wiping it out. And it's noticeable how much backlogged this national final season is going to be. The amount that we're going to hear in March means that unless you've got an absolute bandwagon going from January, early February, it's going to be really easy for Eden to get lost, as it is with all the ones that are going to be picked quite early.
There's also going to be people who drop their records in that last week that completely get lost. Yeah, it's a dangerous strategy this year.
Yeah, I think I've always said that I think this idea of waiting too long too can hurt you. And I think I've shouted this at the mountaintops of Twitter, that to me, Destiny, All of My Love, just got sandwiched last year. It came out just in the wrong space. And had Eurovision happened, I think there would have been some buzz there that would have come, but the releasing of it in the middle of Bulgaria, Switzerland, Netherlands, Israel, it just, and then not too long after, then the mamas from Sweden, it just ended up being sandwiched, you know, I think really for the reason of just when it decided to launch. If it had come out, I think 2 weeks before that, I think it would have been able to generate a little bit more momentum.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. As Ellie said too, I think seeing how many songs we're getting in March, it used to be like a really good tactic to release later, but now it's becoming the opposite. Use February, use this period when we're really looking for something to listen to right now. And I don't know, I thought maybe delegations would be a bit smarter. They've had a lot of years to look back on. So yeah.
Delegations are under a lot of different pressure this year. Broadcasters are under a lot of different pressure. So, you know, a lot of how Eurovision plays out this year is going to be what the international mood is like in May. And that's something that nobody in playing the game of Eurovision has ever had to really think about before.
Yeah, I think that that's a really good point, because ultimately we don't really know how the show is even going to come to fruition. You know, we could really be seeing like, and I think this leads us into the next act to talk about, you know, France's entry, voila. I mean, we could end up seeing that exact performance from France in May, in theory, like, you know, and not like the exact performance, they'll do it live from the studio, but it won't be on this big stage in Rotterdam. It could easily be what we saw yesterday. And to be honest, what we saw was great. That staging was beautiful.
It's very important that they're prevented from putting an Eiffel Tower in.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
I concur.
What are our thoughts on France's entry? Voila. What do y'all think?
It's jury catnip, isn't it? This is going to be top 10 with the juries. It's also going, I think, going to get a lot of love from the Eurovision fans who prefer the older style of contest. This is French, it's chanson, it's smoky. And I think the easiest comparison we have is with Patricia Cass's entry. Does really well with the juries, but struggles with the televote. Now, that's not to say that we couldn't get something like Salvador, but I think this is going to struggle to get the televote.
I should have gone before Hune, because I would have exactly said the exact same thing. I was thinking of Patricia Cass. I was thinking about the whole, it's this song, like myself, that's just me, because I'm a Eurovision fan. I live in the beautiful bubble, and I'm like, I love this song. I love this song to bits. And I'm like trying to think, what do the once a year Eurovision fans are they going to get it? I'm like, well, this is really 1977 or whatever they're going to say. So I'm trying to think it of that way. So I'm not sure. It could have a Salvador Sobral kind of moment. It could have a Patricia Cass route as you, and I'm not quite sure. So it is actually more risky than a lot of people think, because it's number one in the odds now. But me personally, I love it to bits.
Yeah, same. I love it as well. When I first heard it, I just loved that. It brought me back to how I felt when I first heard Portugal 2017 song. It's that nostalgic sound. It reminds me of the music my granda would play when I was younger, and it just took me back, and it really like resonated with me. And the conviction that she had in her performance sold it. Like, I thought a lot of acts last night overstaged and did too much. They threw everything at their performances. And everybody could just take a leaf out of her book. Like, she smashed it. And I'm the same as you, Matt. If I enjoy a song, I'll stay in my little bubble and enjoy it. And I do find it hard to differentiate. Like, but how would the locals, if you want to say, how would they rate it? But I'm happy we have some padam rights.
I think it's sort of dripping with prestige, but possibly. What isn't apparent in the package yet is a personal narrative to go along with it, because obviously it's about Barbara sort of self-actualizing herself, and you would need that personal narrative to go along to really cut through to the audience.
That is a very valid point.
Yeah.
Because Salvador had, you know, it wasn't just him in the song. Alicia, we've spoke about this umpteen times, haven't we? How it wasn't just him or the song, it was everything leading up. Him not being at rehearsals, the connection between him and his sister, you know, you need that narrative to really drive towards the top spot. So I agree, Ellie.
Personally, for me, it's the minute the songs came out for France, it's the one that stood out from the pack straight away. And same with the songs that have been selected so far, it's the one that currently stands out of the three. But it's more of like, as we go on, more songs are going to be selected. How long can Barbara stand out? And also the fact that Voila is the first song that's got a guaranteed spot in the final. So you really wouldn't know how it's gonna compare to the others until that week where we got all 26. But we'll see what the other countries have got. But so far it looks like France has done a good decision on this one.
I still think that it's the jury on. I think one of the interesting things is, as we've said, is this is a really good transposable stage show. So France have already shown that they know how to exactly nail this pre-recording through Junior Eurovision with Valentina, and it was so lovely to see that she finally got a trophy presented to her in public, rather than just delivered through Yodel by the EBU. If they end up with scenario A, this is going to have everybody around. If it's scenario B, it can just be in this quiet, tight camera. And if it's C or D and it's got to take the pre-recorded from the French studio, then really it's black, throw it in a pin spot, and everything just absolutely works here. This is a song where the visual imagery actually comes from the audio. And I really think that in terms of flexibility, this has a lot more going for it than both Israel and Albania's entry so far.
I will say, I think if I'm thinking about this song with just these three songs, obviously France is the top of my list right now. I mean, it's my issue with it wasn't the song or even what I thought the staging and styling would be. I think that this song is so typical French and so expected French that could ultimately hurt it come, I think we could have a nice Patricia Cass moment. And that was kind of what I cited when I first heard it. But let's not forget France, 2017. It basically did nothing. And it was a perfectly competent song. It was very impactful, but in a sea of ballads that year. And just, I think the overall contest, it really didn't get any love. And I think that was 20 something position that year for France. So, I kind of am I like it, I can enjoy it. But when I think about the competition this year, I don't know if it's going to even come into that top 10 category, given what I think we might be getting from some other countries. I mean, obviously we don't know. I'm reading tea leaves here, but I think ultimately it'll be a great professional, clean entry, but I'm not necessarily checking for this entry to be, top 5 or anything like that. I think there are some other countries that I'm no, I feel like what's about to come is going to be really great.
I don't think we've heard the winner yet. There's a long way to go, and I'm expecting to be hit by something we weren't expecting. There are a lot of artists that we're expecting stuff from this year, and I'm expecting maybe something to come along to supersede all of that.
Yeah, and I think that's actually the perfect transition. Let's talk about the artists that we have confirmed already. So we've got Angela from Albania, Montaigne in Australia, Vincent's coming from Austria, Effendi's representing Azerbaijan, Hooverphonic, Belgium, Bulgaria's got Victoria, Cyprus has Elena, Czech Republic's given us Benny Cristo again. Obviously we have Barbara from France, Georgia is sending Turnkey, Leslie Roy, Ireland, Dottie, Iceland, Stefania, Greece, Eden in Israel, Latvia sending us Samantha Tina again. Vasil was just confirmed for North Macedonia again. Also, Moldova has confirmed Natalia as well. Destiny is representing Malta. Roxanne, Romania, Anna, Slovenia, Blas Canto, Spain, Hurricane is coming from Serbia. Cena is rocking San Marino, and Guion's Tears for Switzerland. Jen Groot is coming back for the Netherlands. And of course, last but not least, Goa is going to be representing Ukraine. So we've got a lot of confirmed artists. And I think that's the other reason why I'm like, in other years, you know, it'd be hard to kind of tell, but I think knowing the artists that are confirmed, if they just kind of stay true to themselves, we have an idea of what they could be serving. So which artists that are already confirmed at this point are y'all most excited about?
All right, I'll go first. I mean, I'm excited they're all back because I'm a big proponent of those who didn't get a chance last year to come back this year. So that we have more than half of them coming back to me is so exciting. So just for that, I just want to make sure that I'm excited, whoever is there, that I'm glad that you're back. As far as like my personal level of excitement, there are a few, of course, and often translate to the acts that I loved the most last year, because you're kind of like, I want them to have this smasher again this year. And one of them comes to mind is Victoria from Bulgaria. Tears Getting Sober was like my song. That was my song, and I just love her, and I love what they're doing. I love the Bulgarian team anyway, and now she's back, and I have very high expectations. I know the bar is like really, really high, but I'm still really, really looking forward to what she's going to going to present. I'm a big fan of the Netherlands, Django. How do you pronounce his name? I always mess it up. Django McCroy. But I'm really excited. I loved his song last year. I'm all about, you know, the host nation really bringing some quality. So I'm really excited about him as well. And here it's maybe a little curveball. I'm super excited about Ireland, Leslie Roy. And it seems as I was alone last year dancing to Story of My Life. That's my generation, my story of my life, my Kelly Clarkson anthem. And was the song that made me so happy when I put it on. When it was over, I was sad again. And I want that kind of vibe again. So I'm really excited what she's going to bring to the table. So those would be my three obvious choices that I'm really excited about and see what they're going to bring to the table.
I'm going to echo you on Bulgaria and the Netherlands because they were my 2 and 3 positions last year. They got me last year. They really did. So, but what I am worried about is because, as you say, the bar was set so high. I'm like, oh, Michal, don't put that pressure on them, but it's only natural. And I imagine that over the past few months, they felt the pressure too. Like, what are we going to bring? You know, the expectations there. How are we going to match our previous efforts? But the Bulgarian team recently announced that they're kind of going to do this selection, get internationals involved. So I really trust in them as a team in general. I think they really want to win, and I trust everything they do. Jean-Guy as an artist, I'm just so excited. I've just gone back and dived into his discography, like his voice and him as an artist. I'm excited for. I'm going to throw a curveball and say Hurricane because we all need that little like Euro banger. I'm sorry, but Hasta La Vista. Yes, I want the shiny. I want a little bit of trash. You know, there's nothing wrong with it. Who else am I excited about? Iceland, of course. Iceland. I'm curious to see the reaction with like the general public as well, because Think About Things took off. So I'm just like, he seems like a little mastermind just sitting there making these songs at home. So I'm really excited to see what he brings.
I think one of the things to be careful of is anybody who's expecting to get the same song, but with a 2021 flavor with it, because although these artists have been through, they have to sort of combat the idea of, well, let's go with Victoria, Bulgaria. Last year, Tears Getting Sober was very much a dark horse. I want, in my artists that are coming back, to see growth in them. I don't want to see the same again. So I want to see the artists that have taken time to develop themselves. So the two obvious ones there are Benny Cristo and Destiny, both very much early in their journey of discovering music and art in themselves. And I think that the year of growth that they will have had a huge impact on their music. You know, Leslie Roy will have had the year of experiencing Eurovision and everybody's experience of the last year, but she's much further down her I know what my sound is. I'm really curious to see the artists that can not necessarily reinvent themselves in a way that Samantha Tina has done over the last 10 years, although what she brings is going to be incredibly interesting. But the idea of, I've grown as an artist, this is what I can do now, not this is what I was good at last year.
I actually want to just echo what you just said, and this is where I think sometimes when I talk about like seasoned artists, you know, there's something to be said for an artist that knows themselves, knows their sound, and isn't out here kind of like experimenting. And I think that those folks do have a slight advantage when it comes to that, and because they know themselves, so they know what they can kind of dig into when it comes to creating, as opposed to, you know, and I'll shout out, like, I always root for like any country that has never won before, because I do think that there is something to be said, like, for that Eurovision host team that's like never ever had the opportunity to do it. And so that I kind of have like a little partial excitement just for like the Icelands, the Bulgarias, to kind of deliver. And I also think Bulgaria has just been so consistently sending us quality that I just feel like they really, really do deserve it. If they, you know, if they win, they really do deserve it because they've been working hard for it. But it can be tricky when you have a young performer who's sort of discovering their sound. And I'll shout out like Roxanne, you know, from Romania. You know, I think we've gotten like a ton of like different entries, like kind of sounds from her that I'm kind of like, I don't really know what Romania is going to serve this year, because when I listen to just some of her other singles, I'm like, oh, this is all kind of different, which I like, but it also makes me a little bit nervous because it's like, well, is that different going to be competitive for Eurovision?
Yeah, I'm gonna politely disagree in that sense, because I wanted the songs from last year to be this year's entries. I know people have different opinions, so I said, Victoria, just change it to Dear's Getting Sober. Leslie, change it to Story of My Wife, and just send it. So
Story
I
of
was
My
like,
Wife.
I don't know, just so just something, you know, similar. So I was actually more like rooting for, you know, I don't necessarily need growth in a year where it has been canceled, because they never had an opportunity to present their first. Yes, music still exists. You know, Eurovision does not mean you erase the music, but I just really wanted them to have that moment because they had the perfect song in their mind. And so I was more like, I don't need growth. I just need good music.
I actually think that, I know the RUP haven't been selected for Lithuania yet, but if we're talking about growth and kind of an organic next step, I think the discotheque is that natural progression. I will maybe go as far as to say that I prefer discotheque than On Fire. I think it's more like sonically I'd listen to it. It's something I'd put on repeat. So if we're talking about like that sort of growth musically, then yeah, I think they really did. They stay true to them. They know what works and they know who they are. But it's just like, here's the second album, you know, that sort of vibe.
I think too, I just want to shout out, because I guess I haven't said it. I think at this point, who I'm most kind of curious about, like I already said, like Bulgaria and like Iceland, but really like Gion's Tears and Goa, I'm curious what they are going to serve. And obviously, like I'm really, really excited to see what Benny Cristo does, because
Yes.
I really liked the song last year. I think it would have surprised a lot of folks in the bubble, because it definitely was going to qualify for the final. So I'm curious to see what Benny also serves, because I think it's going to be good. I think I'll like it.
There's a few, I don't know whether I can say that I'm sort of excited about them, but I'm definitely interested about what's going to happen, where I can't even put parameters on what they're going to send. Like Montaigne, Tonica from Georgia, Roxanne's another one, and Fendi from Azerbaijan. Like, I cannot even guess what they're going to do. And it could literally be anything. And that's quite exciting.
It is, and they've had this time like to interact with Eurovision fans. They've got an advantage if they want to use it. They can and could to kind of gauge what, you know. I think anyway with Leslie, from I've got to know her, and just from chatting, it's really opened her eyes to the Eurovision world and the bubble, and she's sort of looking at it with different eyes this time. So for that, I'm really excited to see what she, and probably that's the way other artists are feeling as well, coming into this year. So yes, I was just going to ask what Ewan thought, because he was talking about kind of growth. If he's heard the RUP song, and if he did it meet what he's looking for?
It did. For one of the great things that I love about the RUP is how visual they are. We've all seen it with this, but I really appreciate in the first 30 seconds of the music video, they actually started with On Fire, and then they walked through, and then so he did the hands and then went, No, I'm just going to pull them down here, like sort of almost Doctor Strangelove-esque to get them out of the way. Ripped off last year's outfit. And then because of the mirror, they had the word the roop, and then the roop mirrored. So it's just like, here's the roop behind us, here's the roop forward, and we're moving forward. We still remember what we did before, but now we're going to give you something different.
Yeah.
And it was a Cadbury's Cream Egg advert. I love the fact that that song is not audio on its own. I was a bit, there's something missing here. And that missing bit was the visual bit. And I think that they've got the language of Eurovision correct. It's now about translating it over all of Europe.
Looking at the returning artists, there's actually three. I don't think they've been mentioned so far. One's Montaigne from Australia. We haven't really heard much from her since, like, music-wise, since she won Australia Decides. So I'm kind of curious seeing how she can progress from Don't Break Me. Another one would be Belgium and Hooverphonic, because obviously they've had a change of group members. Luca is obviously left, Guyk is now back. So I don't know if that would affect like how this song could be or how it can change up from Release Me. So not much there. And another one, personally for me, is Austria and Vincent Bueno, because I know not a lot of fans have a liking to Vincent, but for me, I know he's working hard, but if we're gonna get it in the same style as Alive or different, who knows?
I was really hoping for one of those 80s synth bangers from Vincent Bueno, but looking at the writing team, I'm not sure that we're gonna get that.
How are you guys feeling about this 80s influence coming into national final season and songs? I feel like we can stop now. I'm done. Like, Hero did it for me. Hero topped the thing up and now it's overflowing. I'm done with Ray Lee's song. I'm okay with us pausing on that. What about you guys?
No, there's no such thing as too much 80s music. That's just my opinion. So this is outrageous what you're saying. I get what you're saying. But it's kind of about personally. I love retro 80s music. So that's my favorite what's it called? Decade, not century, decade. So
I just don't really know if like trend chasers they've never been Eurovision winners, you know what I mean? And yeah, I just don't know if you know what I mean. But they're all over my Spotify.
I will say, like, I love 80s music. I like 80s like R&B music. I love 80s like new wave music. But I will say, I do think that, and especially in America, there has been really for the past like 4 years, a little bit of this freeze. There's literally been like this freeze in time of like 80s music. So I feel like already popular music has kind of been stuck in this zone. And I'm just like a little bit like, y'all can do other things. There are other sounds to play around with. So just go on and go in that little like sandbox and experiment with some other sounds, because I do think for the larger music industry has definitely been a little bit in this 80s zone. I mean, like The Weeknd's last album was just like, oh, okay, we're just going full blown Michael Thriller 80s moment.
I think it's interesting because it shows that the time difference between Eurovision land and the charts is the smallest it's been in years. I mean, it's not going to necessarily tell us that an 80s synth song is going to win, but it's showing that distance has narrowed now.
And there's we have to remember there's a huge amount of sort of rap music and hip hop that is all over the European charts at the moment. We've got #1 artists in national finals. Tix was 2 #1s last year in a bundle of second and thirds. You've got Fedez popping up in San Remo. 10-second clip leaked onto Instagram, notwithstanding. We've not to say anything. He hit #1 just after Christmas. So Ellie's already been touched a number of times with the sort of tropical pop sound that sneaks into the sort of 80s vibe, 80s sound. So yeah, there's a lot of 80s influence, but if we're going for trendsetters, we're going to hear a lot of music that we wouldn't normally have heard at the Eurovision Song Contest. And it is starting to come through the national finals. So hopefully we will see more chart-like hits when we get to May.
Okay, so that brings up an interesting question. So We have some national selections coming up. Which ones are you most excited about?
Allora.
Allora,
Allora.
Allora. And now,
Dime.
because of Eurovision Again, you all know Sanremo's really, really short compared to Portugal 2018. Yeah, I mean, for me, it's Sanremo. I don't think anybody who's followed me on ESCInsight will know any difference. It's what I love about national finals is it shows another country's culture, and if you get that, then Sanremo is this wonderful jewel. It's not as accessible as most other national finals, but when you click into it, it just sounds absolutely wonderful. There's a whole bundle of artists that I'm looking forward to, any one of which I think would do really well on the Eurovision stage. So Lo Stato Social, Fedez that we've already mentioned, who's duetting with Francesca Michelin. So there's already a Eurovision touchstone there. Personally, you know, Noemi's always going to be high up on my list. It's the Kelly Clarkson-esque of my list. So yeah, there's just so much going on in Sanremo, and you know, it's a week of distraction and getting away from the world, which I like most years, but 2021, I'm going to really like.
Well, I can go next. And my one, I think it's going to be obvious. It's mine be Sverige, Melodifestivalen.
Nu Corby!
And I think personally for me, it's because, correct me if I'm wrong, it's Christer Bjorkman's last year in the competition. So it's more of like, okay, it's my last year. Let's go all out with everything. And they did just that with the acts, with the hosts, and it looks like we're going to get a great show, even though we're not going to be in the usual tour setup and the big arena stage. So, and the fact that the Mamas and Dota actually came back even after coming up as top 2 last year is quite surprising, because we all thought like, oh, the Mamas are not going to come back, and then all of a sudden it was like, oh yeah, we're returning. And you know, we'll see if they can do what, a 2-time win, or if you include their participation with John, a hat trick. Who knows?
I mean, I would agree both Sanremo and Melodifestivalen are the 2 big ones. And the problem is with this year, because we have so many returning artists, there is just a limited number of like outlier national finals, like what we usually have. Like Moldova doesn't have one. Australia doesn't have national final. Germany hasn't done one in a while. But I'm really excited about Finland this year. The music in the national final, according to my taste, is just out of this world. And I feel as Finland could do really well, because there are at least 5 songs out of 7 that I'm like, oh, I love them. And that is rare, especially in Finland. So I'm really rooting for them. There are at least, 5. There's some songs, 5 I really love. So I would be like, I'm pretty safe. Although Finland, as I said before, has the tendency to pick the ones that I don't want to see win. So I should be quiet now. But I'm really excited about Finland this year.
I'll go next. I am, to no surprise to anyone, so excited for Melodifestivalen. We've literally got less than a week now, 6 days. I wait for this season like all year. I'm so excited. Gutted that we're not going to be able to go there and all meet up and just hang out. But to echo everyone, you know, we've got a star-studded show. It's Christer Bjorkman's last year. He was just like, I'm going out with a bang, mic drop. Like literally, I'm going to give you like the veterans. I'm going to give you some new artists, and then we're going to give you like 10 million hosts. Like, I'm so excited for the music. My Spotify is ready for all of this. Yeah.
One of the interesting things about Melfest is how many of the artists have said they're coming back because it's Christer's last year. So as well as, you know, this is a chance for them to get back on Swedish television. There's, you know, in the same way that when you had someone like Swedish Housewives, the Melodifestivalen was basically giving a valedictory sort of runaround. I think the same is true for many of the artists, and that's bunched up. But let's face it, there's only going to be one story out of Melfest that dominates the Swedish press, and that's Danny versus Eric. It's a return of the battle that we had in 2011. You know, Danny is out for blood. Eric wants to make sure of it again. Danny was actually offered hosting first, speaking to Ben back at ESCInsights, and he said, nope, I've got a new sound. I've got a new song. I want to sing. So
yes.
their danders are up, as we would say north of the border.
Well, I will tell you, I guess is no surprise. I am excited for Melodifestivalen, and I definitely think Melodifestivalen is going to be interesting this year, but I always feel like it is. So to me, really the national selection I am most excited about, honestly, is Eesti Laul. I really, really like a lot of the songs that are there. I will also say that Eesti Laul typically chooses the song that I don't like. So, but there are so many that I really, really do like. So because of that, I'm really excited for Eesti Laul this year. But I will say I do have, and this is kind of a new thing, where I'm choosing to not really follow a ton of the national selections, ultimately because I just want to be happy for the song that wins. I just do. And I had someone like comment on YouTube and go, well, don't like not go back and listen to the songs. And like, I totally will go back and revisit the songs, but I feel better about an entry when I don't really know what the song beat sometimes.
That's true. The struggle of a Euro fan, like when you present the winner, even though it's a perfectly competent, solid entry, but it beat your favorite, and it's like, well, I'm not gonna. It's tough. I forgot we have Denmark coming up on the 10th of February. Denmark can be quite vanilla and beige, but I've got a little soft spot. I don't know why. I'm curious about them because sometimes there are some solid entries in their national final. So yeah.
Speaking of ones where, a song that's solid wins, but it beat your favorite, I think that Norway's Melodi Grand Prix is going to give people a lot of anguish when the grand final night comes around. Oh boy.
Ooh.
Also, I think that just looking at the numbers, do not discount TIX.
No, agreed.
Yeah.
TIX is one of those ones that's absolutely dominated the charts. I love that NRK announced TIX and Kaino on the same day for Heat 1, because not only did it immediately catch the Norwegian press and public with it, we've got the biggest chart act from last year, but then all the Euro fans and the international watchers went, we've got Kaino back again. And it just lit up these two separate storylines, one inside Norway and one outside Norway. And how that comes together when we get to that grand final, there's a chance for any of like 5 or 6 already to go through. You've got Emmy in there, you've got Rayleigh in there, you've got Kaino in there, you've got Ryan Alexander, let's not forget, is going straight through. You've got TIX coming through. That's going to be a bloodbath of music.
Yeah, the final is going to be a quality final, but sometimes with Norway, I feel like we don't need the semi-finals. I think I like the old format. Sometimes I just don't have, the songs don't draw me in to even tune into the semi-finals.
Do you have somewhere to go on Saturday nights?
No,
you're
not
Badger.
really. But
you're Badger from the Masked Singer, aren't you?
I know Eurovision Hub says less national finals. I just want to put that out there, okay?
No,
I hear what you say.
Yeah,
go ahead. Sorry.
Sometimes the songs just I could do with like a solid 10 song final instead of these 5 week. We get 4 here and 4 here.
Yes, that I agree with.
They're not solid entries.
They don't have to have 4. I like having semifinals, what they do. I like the idea behind it. I just like the execution. If you do all these 4 shows or 5, why do you have half of the songs already pre-qualified? So then have them all and make it at least a little bit more full show rather than having like 4 songs and then perform twice, 2 duels and all of that stuff. So yeah, I agree with your sentiment there. But yeah, it's definitely going to be a bloodbath in Norway because there is a lot of competition out there. I just want to add, keep in mind, it's going to be especially interesting because we're not going to have any juries in Norway this year. So it'll be only the Norwegian public that'll make that call. So something also take into consideration, because kind of a huge favorite with the Eurovision fans, but it's not just the Eurovision fans having a say here. There are no international juries. So I just
this is why I suggest everybody finds reasons that they can get on board with TIX.
Yes, I agree with that. I can.
I'm going to disagree slightly with you there, Matt and Milai, because we have to remember that these national finals are put on by public service broadcasters. We'll stay with Norway for an example. If they'd had a 10-strong final, they could have sent 10 acts, given them primetime TV on Saturday. With this heat system, and remember, I suspect they were going to go back to the 10 strong, but because of everything going wrong in the world, they've carried on with last year's extended format. They've now got a chance to showcase 28, somebody fix my maths for me, 26 artists on national television on Saturday night, giving far more exposure both to the established acts, but also to up and coming acts, and giving them the chance to perform in public. That's public service broadcasting. And I know we look at Eurovision with our competitive hats on and our small groups, we just want a strong national final. But a public service broadcaster getting the choice of putting up 26 new acts or 10 acts to the public, they're going to bias towards the 26. And let's also talk about it's going to save project money and their Saturday night budget to have one show running 6 weeks. But I think that it's good that we have more in national finals, and they get whittled down to a good final rather than going straight into a one-shot national.
No, and I don't disagree with you. I actually am with you, and more the merrier. I'm with you on that. I guess my point is just saying not have 4 songs in each semi. Have them shine, but then make it fair. I'm very much against this whole we the producers select the ones that we want in the finals. If you want to, and now they're saying it's established artists, but not all of them are established either. So, and then why is Raleigh have to go for the semis twice? Ryan Alexander only had to do last year, but this year they don't. So it seems a little like to me. So I'm saying if you do these and you want to add exposure, make it fair for everyone. And just like Melodifestivalen, that's my point.
They just really like duels.
Yeah, I think so too.
I think for Melody Grand Prix, it's more of towards, we don't know, we don't fully know yet who's going to be the final, and there's still like a couple of semifinals left and the wild card. So they really went all out with Norway. So it's more of like, okay, we think we know who might win now, but yet we still can't discount it because there's still more people coming in. So you're just like, and then there's NRK like dropping hits like, oh, you might see some like well-known names tomorrow. Like, and you keep thinking like, it's more of like the buzz. They're trying to put a buzz around it to try and get people enticed to watching it. So, and they're doing it quite well, actually, because I've been watching Melodi Grand Prix throughout. So we'll see how that changes when more national finals come up this weekend.
Yeah, like I said, I don't want that many semi-finals only because of the quality of the songs. But here's me over in Ireland. I would love to have a final or a selection like Melodi Grand Prix. So any broadcaster, any country that appears to be putting in effort, wants to do well, I fully get behind, you know what I mean? I might not like all your semi-final songs, but you're doing more than RTE, so I'm good.
Well, that begs the question, what country that doesn't have a national selection, and I mean like not including this year per se because of inviting folks back from last year, but what's a country that doesn't have a national selection that y'all believe really, really needs a national selection? Or, and I'd say on the other side, what country needs to start internally selecting and drop doing the national selection?
On the topic of Ireland, I'm just going to say Ireland. I'd love to see. We don't even have to have a big televised one. Bulgaria is a perfect example of you don't need to have a super big budget. You don't need to have all this. You can just have your songs and do things online, get the fans involved. You know, it's possible. And I just want them to kind of step out of the box, look around and just think of new methods to select a song. You know, it doesn't have to be with a live studio audience. You know, just give us options. Don't just say, here it is.
It's very interesting because, you know, countries like Bulgaria or Malta, who have gone internal lately over the past few years, have had the opportunity to work with like a dedicated team who knows what they're doing and put forward really good quality music. But then you had countries like Ireland and UK who also had national finals and then went to internal thinking, well, now we're going to get the really good songwriters and people in charge putting something good together. And then they don't. They still sent the music that you're like, okay, that is, you scrap the national finals for this. And I like some of the songs. It's not even that I don't like all of the songs, because I liked the UK's entry last year, as a matter of fact. But the point is, you knew that this would probably not be for the masses or would ride success at Eurovision. So I feel as but Ireland, yes, had one decent outcome in 2018, but for the most part, the selections have been a little underwhelming. So I say go back to national finals and give it a shot, and just maybe come up with a more effective national final. Now, I'm not in charge. I cannot tell you what's effective, but what you've done so far in the past, maybe don't do it like in a late night show or have like, these really weird setups. But that would be my opinion. UK and Ireland, I think maybe it's time for another national final.
I think any national final needs one very important thing, and it's a system where if an artist finishes last, an artist is still happy. So any artist, for example, who goes into Melodifestivalen, their value is, I got to Melfest. If they finish last in the first heat in Melfest, it's still good for their career. And we see the same in Eesti Laul, and we're starting to see the same in Norway. And hopefully we're starting to see the same in France as well. It's the countries where if you have a national final and you come last, that's your career game over. United Kingdom, Ireland, arguably Germany over the last couple of years as well. You can't have a national final there until you change the attitude around the national final in the public, in the media, and in the industry. It's not a simple fact of saying, we'll have a national final, we'll find a better song. What you need is, we need to have a cocoon. We need to have an atmosphere where we can have multiple songs being chosen by the public and it doesn't damage the artist.
Nobody wants to jump in after that. That was like listening to like a really wise guy. I was like, say more, I agree.
Well, I would say, I think with the UK, I think if they were to go back to having some type of national selection, I think that they should consider sort of the Czech Republic model of letting everybody vote, because clearly the UK public is not adept at choosing a representative for the Eurovision Song Contest. So if they are going to do it, I think that they should choose a Czech Republic model where you get your music videos and then it's just open. And I think that would also be a mark of good faith, I think, for the larger European community to feel like the UK cares even. So I think that is what I would suggest if I was talking to the BBC. I would say, look at maybe what Czech Republic is doing and try that out. I would be curious to see what Austria would do, because I actually do think that they've been giving quality production. I mean, arguably, like, they've done quality production. They have had their track record for qualifying is actually relatively good of recent years. So I'd almost be curious what a national selection in Austria would look like.
Yeah, when you said that, it also made me think about Belgium. I'd like to see a Belgian national final. Since 2000 and
16. Yeah, well, my arguable thing was I was not a fan of in 2016 I think Laura ended up pulling it out and did a nice job, obviously, in 2016, but I was one of the Tom fans.
I think Belgium felt like they were on a roll for a while, and then it's like they dropped the ball, and I was just thinking, maybe if they go back and let the Belgian people decide, maybe, or because
they've been dropping the ball with the staging.
They have. It's like
it's not the songs.
No.
It's not the songs, and I don't even think it's the artists. It's the staging that has been letting Belgium down. Because arguably the songs have been great, and then you look at what happens on stage, and it's like, why? Why?
They might even get a decent result out of this year, even though the artist has been determined to get the villain edit. But the people who turn up on Saturday in May are not going to know all of the stuff that went on.
I actually feel better about Hooverphonic with the original vocalists, to be honest. I think, no shade, not in a shady way to Luca, but I just think vocally their style and vibe is so mature. And then to kind of have this young voice, the juxtaposition of it, I could get it, but I prefer, I really love Eden. I'm like, if y'all could just recreate something dark 90s trip hop pop, I'd be all over that.
Personally, I agree with everyone that the UK needs to open it back up, because as a British fan, it really hurts watching your country like scrape like last place, and every time you just keep seeing it, it's just like we're just laughing stock now, and it's getting embarrassing. But you know, we'll see what they do this year with that one. And flip side the question, who do you think we should open it up to? I'm guessing the Netherlands. I'm kind of curious to see what they can do with that, because the last time they've done like an national selection was what, 2012?
Correct.
And they've internally selected everyone since 2013. I'm kind of curious how they would spin their selection method into a national final and make it as high quality as possible. Because if you can turn it around within like what, just a few years and then end up winning the contest itself, why not see if you can do that for a final?
If it's not broken, don't fix it. You literally stop doing national finals. You turned it around, keep going. But like, don't.
In purely selfish terms, and we're probably talking 2022, 2023 here, I go to a lot of cold national finals and wear my thermals. And that's not so good. What I would like maybe is Cyprus and Greece to open it up, national final, Panic Records, whole roster, on the stage, on the beach, nice national final weekend.
Co-sign. Yep. I'm all here for it. Yep. Yes. I mean, because actually, I didn't even think of it, but yeah, Greece or Cyprus, that could be interesting. Because I mean, I feel like that Mad, the fashion walk show, is essentially like their national selection. Like I just watched that because it is great. Fashion, performances, like I could just take that as my national selection and then we call and decide which one we like.
Yeah, the thing I love and what excites me about Cyprus in general in recent years is the backing of the record label, having Panic there and really together with the broadcaster making good decisions. And I always feel I trust Cyprus. So, I mean, I would really trust them in a national final too. And I'd be here for that climate as well. On the beach, they'll hammer out a sour. Be nice.
I think the trust with Cyprus is a really important one, because I think when they went in with Fuego, it's just like, oh, we're going to do okay. But then after the first rehearsal and the reaction in the press room, is they suddenly went, we might have something there. And, you know, the delegation calling back going, we need more pyro, we need more budget, we need more PR. We think we've got the one. And the broadcaster and the record label, and we just went, okay, here's some more. Go win it for us. And they got so close. But the confidence that the three sort of parts had there, the broadcaster, the publisher, the record label, on top of the PR and the public reaction, is what made Fuego work. It's just like, we've got something now, let's really work in. Everybody was pulling in the same direction. To go briefly back to that point on the UK, I think the UK public made exactly the right choice for the Eurovision Song Contest that was presented to them by the BBC and the media in the UK. That contest, which doesn't exist, we would have done really well at. But unfortunately, the contest we have is not camp, it's not cheesy, and it's not... The UK public doesn't see the Eurovision Song Contest as how everybody else in Europe sees the song contest. So even opening up a national final, we just will get another camp, cheesy, scooch, let's pack in some innuendo.
I would say it is camp, but the UK interpretation has that as camp and lacking quality, whereas the vibe of modern Eurovision is like extremely highly produced camp.
All right, so we're going to wrap this up soon, and it's one last thought, and essentially the one last thought I would be curious for y'all to share. What is the country that you surefire feel of the countries that compete in the semi that you are not worried about at all? That whatever they send, it's going to be good and it is going to qualify. Who do you have the most confidence in?
Y'all going to say Sweden now, right?
Yeah, this is our time to just say Sweden. 1, 2, 3, Sweden.
Sweden.
Ukraine and Australia.
That's true there too. I think here's the thing. It seems like we always look at previous like patterns as of late. Some countries in the past didn't do well, now they do well. And now we think they're going to always qualify. And that seems to be kind of a theme. So I can only echo what's been said. Sweden comes to mind, Russia, Australia, those countries. Yes, they all had like one boo-boo in between and stuff like that. But for the most part, these countries tend to qualify. We don't even know the song, but it's not just because they are like, we always qualify because that's who we are, but they do put forward music. They have a little bit more of a feel of what works, and it can change. Countries sometimes change as far as like their success rate, and we've seen people rise and fall, and it could happen. But as of right now, Australia, Azerbaijan, Russia, Sweden, Ukraine, those 5 are the ones that I feel like we're probably going to see them in the finals.
You were supposed to say one.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'll say one then. Iceland. I'll be quite happy to put money on Iceland that we're going to get some really good quality and it's going to qualify through to Saturday night.
I'm going to say, apart from Sweden, I'm going to say Bulgaria. And I love that I'm saying that because I remember back in 2005, 2006, Bulgaria was nowhere on our radar. You know, like they were not the powerhouse. And I've loved watching Bulgaria through the past decade. I remember just when they entered and I was like, okay, and watching their progress just going up and up and up. And I love that I have the confidence to literally tell you they will qualify and it will be quality. So Bulgaria.
For this time around in 2021, I'd say, I'm gonna be the same. I'll probably say Iceland just because of the fact that they've done the right method this time around for 2021, and they took that opportunity. Like when Dadi became a hit, I was like, okay, use it. We'll finally get our first win.
I think for me, I feel the most confident that, and I should say confidence, not only that it'll qualify, but confidence that I'm going to like what they're serving. So I'll add that little asterisk to mine, is Cyprus. I think I'm going to like what they serve. And I think it's going to qualify, but I think I'm actually really going to like it. I don't know why. I just think no matter what it is, like, I'm just going to like it. I hope I do. But thank y'all so much for joining my ESC Zoom party. We have to do this again, y'all.
Yes. We do. Thank you so much.
Yeah.